just at 5 past. We'll give everyone a little bit of time to get it in. Just so everybody knows, we are recording this. It's recorded onto YouTube. There we go. Back to my screen. Hold on that. That's great. Joined. Just to let everybody know, while we're waiting for people to join, if you are joining and wanting to get translated captions, you are able to do that by following this. This is mainly for Portuguese and French speakers on the continent, but there is availability for other languages as well. We'll start shortly. Right. Cindy, just checking with you. Everything okay on your side before we get going?
All good, thanks.
Okay, brilliant. Just check one thing over here quickly, and then all right. Great. Okay, I think we can start. So I'm sure people will join as it goes. Cindy, please keep an eye on the waiting room comes up, but it is enabled, so people should join straight in. Just introducing the program today. This is our sixth webinar for the program that we're running for AGOA eligibility and trade logistics support. So today's topic is understanding communities' requirements, and when you are accessing the US market. Obviously, the US market has multiple communities. We are focusing on some of them today, and certain things that you have to have in place when you are targeting the US market. Just as mentioned earlier, it is available in multiple languages, so you'll get subtitles that gives you automatically translates what I'm saying, what the speakers are saying. So please feel free to use this if you wanted to hear see it and understand what we're talking about in a different language. So yeah, just to give you an outline of today's presentation and webinar, I'll be your moderator. My name is Rex Bowden. I come from South Africa. I'm based in Cape Town, as you can see behind me. And I run a company called Catalyze, which helps companies get into international markets and really drives trade between Africa and the US market at the moment. Our second speaker is Greg Jansen from Pura Beverages. He's a South African exporter, and we'll tell you a little bit more about him later, and he'll give you some insights into what they're doing into the US. Our third speaker is Rabbi Levi Fiegelstock from Orb Kosher. They help companies get their products kosher registered, which is a large community in the US. And then fourthly, it will be Ricardo Berries from a company called Purposely. He's based out in Atlanta, and he will be giving information on getting into the US market and also looking specifically at the African American market and how that market is really growing at the moment and the opportunities in that. So, and understanding more about it. To give you a little bit more information, as usual, about our AGOA eligibility and trade logistics program. This is something that's sponsored by USAID and Prosper Africa. It is a customer support service program that we've been running since February this year. And we at the moment around 500 companies that we've dealt with. We've got about 250 more that we are dealing with at the moment, and really giving companies great support and information about getting into the US market through the use of AGOA and GSP. Just to break it down, the program involves a customer service support team that contacts people and makes sure that we answer their questions. That is supported by some experts. We also do some training sessions. This has been the 6th one. We were meant to do 4, but they were so popular that we added another 2. And then we do a lot of PR and promotion about the use of AGOA. So you would have seen lots of stuff coming out from Catalyze and the team, really driving people to use AGOA. And then I'll give you some information on other Catalyze projects that we're doing. So yeah, just outline of this customer service program. Process is very simple. Just the ability to click on a link, and that link will take you to a form to fill out. Gives us good information about your company and what you're looking for. We then assess and clarify the information and make sure we understand what you are needing. So we'll contact you, give you a call, drop you an email, really get to the bottom of what's needed. We'll then assess that further, and we'll supply you with as much information as we can. We use a website called agoa.info to lead you to the right information. That's one of our partners. Trelec is he's our AGOA expert, has worked on for the last 20 years, so very up-to-date, relevant information on there. And then if it still needs a bit more clarity from either the AGOA expert or logistics partner or trade partner, we will get an appointment set up for you with an expert. We will facilitate that and manage that for you. As mentioned, we have 2 great experts involved here. One is King Cargo, who is a leading freight forwarder from South Africa. It does all kinds of products into the international market, does a lot into the US as well. But yeah, really very broad focus on products into various exhibitions and trade programs around the world. And then Eckhard Naumann from Trelec. As mentioned, Trelec are the custodians of agoa.info, which is the book on AGOA. So really in-depth information on what's happening, how it's developing with AGOA eligibility tools, exporter toolkits there, information on anything that's happening between Africa, or as much stuff as they can put on there between Africa and the US, and really giving great context and information on making sure people are utilizing AGOA. As mentioned, yeah, we're doing 6 training sessions and webinars. This is the 6th, so you can see that there in green. We were meant to only do 4, but yeah, it really was a great way to reach out to people and some great information there. We wish we could have done more as well. There really is a lot of information and opportunity in the market, and it's great to have people talking about it. And we really take a practical approach to this. So you'll see today people that we've got on board that are actually going to tell you what is needed to get sort of documentation in place, what things in markets to be aware of. I know Greg's going to tell us about some opportunities and things that to look out for and be aware of in accessing the US market. But we've gone through loads of things. A lot of these are also edited and summarized into 3-minute videos. Not the last 2. The first 4 will be, or they're out there on the interweb. Yeah, have a look at that. We know it's sometimes difficult to watch 2.5, 3 hours of a video, but we've summarized them into 3 minutes, so you can see which one is relevant to you and jump on the information that you're keen on. So please go through them. They're all on YouTube. They're available for you. You'll also see them on LinkedIn. We posted them all over there. Others, as mentioned, we're doing a lot of PR and marketing. There's an animated video that we've produced and then cut also that down as a 2.5-minute video, and we've cut it down into 30 to 40-minute segments on each part of it. Really, accessibility is the key for us throughout this program. That animated video shows you how to use agoa.info. It gives you information about the whole program, pushes people to utilize it. It's a nice way to encourage people to get involved and use the service provided by Catalyze for Prosper Africa and USAID on AGOA. As mentioned, all our webinars are edited, so you have a look on that. And then we're just pushing a huge amount of PR and information out on social platforms. We've done a lot of this year. There's great stories coming out of Africa and their market into the US at the moment. So we're really pushing that and encouraging people to get to markets. And then just a little bit more about Catalyze. We take groups of companies, of African companies, to pavilions all over the world. We represent 100+ exhibitions around the world per year, take out 500+ African companies to markets per year, and really just drive trade. And there's obviously a huge opportunity in the African market. We've got a huge amount of arable land and amazing products that come out of the continent. So we are very passionate about that and drive that through taking companies to international events around the world and making a mark on exports in those to those new countries. We do a lot of B2B matching programs and hosted buyer programs, and those are linking key sellers and buyers together. We're really targeting that. It's something that we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years and seeing amazing return on investment on this. The ability to bring buyers from around the world back into Africa forms a bond with the country. It shows that there is economics happening on the continent. There are roads and infrastructure, and things are bustling, and it's a beautiful continent with amazing land and flora and fauna. So it really captures people when they come out, and that bond we find is super important. It also very focuses those buyers specifically on a country when they come to it, so they're very excited and have a great memory of it. So it's a great program that we're driving a lot, and we're starting to bring them to a lot of the African events now as well. As mentioned, we also, in the past, we do our own events. Africa Games Week, Ocean Innovation Africa. Africa Games Week is the largest video game events on the continent. It's the largest gathering of African game developers on the continent as well. So if you're into playing video games and learning about creative digital economy, get in touch. Amazing, beautiful stories coming out of Africa in that space. And then we do the largest blue economy event in Africa called Ocean Innovation Africa. And that's been really driving for the last 5 years the development of the blue economy. Obviously, Africa is surrounded by a whole lot of water, a huge amount of coastline. And stories from across the continent coming out of that, and new innovations and technology and the way that we use the ocean in a more sustainable fashion. So we push corporates, government, entrepreneurs, and education facilities to work together and find solutions throughout that event. We also run Engage Trade Africa, which is a USAID-funded event over the last few years. Again, driving business between Africa. So it's looking at bolstering opportunities between different African countries, really looking at keeping ingredients in the continent and manufacturing them in the continent, value adding them, and then selling them out, and then connecting African manufacturers with US buyers. So one of our speakers today, Ricardo Berries, was actually out at Engage Trade Africa earlier this year in March. And had a great experience out here at Engage Trade Africa, and we will be looking at running that again in 2024 in about September, and really focused on matchmaking and B2Bs. We look at events, less talking, more doing. So we put people onto 300 or 400 meetings over the time that they're at the event. We run about that many meetings. It's very focused on what we get out, and very focused on food and beverage products, as well as cosmetics and ingredients, but we're slowly bringing in other industries, medical devices, decor design, textile, etc., all products that you can export from Africa into the US market and drive business between African companies. So, yeah, our first speaker for the day. Greg, can you put your camera on? And we'll start with you. So just to introduce Greg, Greg runs a company called Pura Beverages that are, see, I've missed the A in Africa there. That's not good. But he runs a company called Pura Beverages. They are exporting to the US at the moment. They do an amazing product that is taken a huge leap into the market in the US, just because it is natural, no sugars, and an exciting product for the US market at the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Greg. Yeah, Greg, please share your screen, and I'll stop share and go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Rex. Just again, by introduction, Greg Jansen. Our company is Pura Beverages, but our brand is Live a Little Pura. And effectively, what we do is we manufacture, sell, and market better for you soft drinks that taste absolutely amazing. All of our products are effectively award-winning, and our brand is Total Disruptor. And what I really enjoy is that our brand personality is Maverick with the cause. So with a brand with that type of personality, you can really, really have fun. Now, Rex has asked me to share a little bit about our move into the US. Southern Africa is our provenance market. The US is our big bet in terms of our international growth. And effectively, we really use AGOA in a big way, and I'm extremely grateful for the agreements that are in place, and also extremely grateful for the support we get from USAID and Prosper Africa and Rex and his team. I think the world works around relationships, and these relationships we nurture and handle them with a lot of care, because everyone has helped us along the way to kind of get to where we are. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to share effectively a couple of lessons that we have learned along the way. And I've basically just classed it into 10 key insights to making USA a success. And I need to caveat it that this is based on our experience. So some people might have different experiences, but if I can help people learn from the mistakes we've made, that would be fantastic. Okay, so first and foremost, as I've mentioned, this is from our experience from dealing in the States. And kind of the first lesson we've learned is that, simply put, you cannot dip your toe into the water in the US. You've got to decide whether you're in the market or whether you're not in the market. And if you decide that you are in, you need to go all in, and you're going to have to invest a bit of cash, especially if you are coming from South Africa or some other countries. There's a very, very unfavorable exchange rate between the South African rand and the US dollar conversion. But literally, again, you've got to decide that you are in, which means that you're going to have to go to the right shows. You're going to have to look at setting up brokers in the States. You're going to have to definitely spend time and money on trips, etc. In our experience, it's not as simple as just trying to find a distributor that's going to do it all for you. Again, this is based on our experience. Number two, lesson we've learned: you need to look into the whites of people's eyes. So what do I mean by that? Certainly during COVID, we had very poor traction because we launched just before COVID, and we've really had phenomenal traction post COVID. And one of the rules that we've set in our business is that you need to actually go across, and you need to see people, see them face to face, see the operations on the ground, because we've been burnt a few times by people explaining to us that they've got this structure, or they've got this distribution, or they've got these relationships. And in our experience, some of those people didn't have it. So there's no substitute, simply put, for getting on a plane, going across, seeing the warehouses that you're going to use, looking at the distributors, understanding who else they distribute for. Don't just take what they say as gospel. Go into the warehouses, look at the brands that people are moving. If there's a brand that speak to them, ask them what it's like working with people. So we are very fortunate, and in some of the places and instances that we've been into, there's been brands in there that we've known. We've been able to speak to people and get personal references. And every time we've done that, we've had success. Every time we haven't done this, we've certainly had a mixed bag of success. Number 3, beware of retainers. And again, this is in our experience. What we found is some people that you speak to want a retainer up front. And, in our experience, that has burnt us every single time. We far prefer the model of people putting skin in the game and working on a performance-based kind of remuneration model, which simply means they have a share of sales as opposed to retainer upfront. We've had a few instances where we spent a lot of money investing in retainers upfront for very, very little return. And on the other side, we've had phenomenal success where people back themselves. They know they're only going to be remunerated from the fruits of the labor or sales actually happening. And simply put, we've had a lot of success in that kind of manner. Point number 4, USA in our experience and in my experience is a land of convenience. There's amazing technology there. There's amazing systems there. If you look at the age of computers, the age of electronics, my brother, as an example, lives in the States. His whole house is fully automated, from the blinds to the doorbell to the water tap to the vacuum cleaner. So I said to him, if there was ever a load shedding where he lives in North Carolina, he'd be absolutely buggered. But the point is that it's a land of convenience, and I think because of that, ease of doing business in the States in general is quite an important element for getting things right with retailers. So again, certainly in our experience, most retailers would prefer to do business with a US entity because they understand a US entity. We have a US entity set up. We distribute with KeHE and Unified, 2 of the biggest distributors in the US. We have third-party logistics that we use. Again, very well-known people that we use. And I suppose the biggest learning here is that we are familiar. We're a US entity. We have US principles. It's not about containers clearing port, etc. We basically sell into America from our American warehouse. So effectively, guys are dealing with a US entity. Number 5, an online presence, absolutely essential. I mean, if you just look how online is taking over people's lives, it is critical to make sure that you have an online presence. However, in our experience, online presence is not something you necessarily make any money off until the volumes really kick in. It's more of a brand awareness strategy that really comes through quite strongly. So again, I would recommend that online, super critical. Amazon is the big one, but don't overlook the online portals that all the retailers basically have with them. Okay, point number 6. So simply put, US retail works very similar to retail in the rest of the world. We have a simple formula that I've borrowed from Coca-Cola. Sales simply equals the number of stores you are in multiplied by that rate of sale in store. And once you understand that, you'll understand the nuances of driving sales. 1, track the number of stores that you are in, and 2, you've got to track again the rate of sale around that, which kind of leads into my point number 7. There's a very, very big difference between on shelf versus making sure that your product is pulled off the shelf. So it's a hell of a mission to get on shelf in certain retailers or in retailers in the US. We've been fortunate enough, we listed in Walmart, we've got listings in Target now, we're in Aldi's. So we've got some really, really nice retailers. That's 10% of the challenge. 90% of the challenge is making sure that you make your consumer aware of your product and you put in mechanisms to create pull off the shelf. And there are various options. In Southern Africa, we would do sampling. We make sure that there's point of sale that's up. We've got signature moves, etc. In the States, it's that much more expensive. So we rely quite heavily on a social media presence and from driving kind of digital media and digital marketing. To make that happen. In the US to make sure that it is compliant. You don't want to get it wrong. You don't want anyone to come to you after the fact and for you to have to do a product recall or anything like that. So my advice is get the experts to kick the tires on your packaging to make sure that that FDA compliance is absolutely watertight. Number 9, liability insurance and legal counsel. Most retailers require that you have liability insurance in place. They normally require a certain amount. In our experience, it's anywhere from $3 million to $5 million that you have to prove by showing certificates that you have this cover in terms of doing business with them. And then, linked to this, but it is a little bit separate, is do make sure that you do have a legal counsel lined up, just to make sure that you can see your way through any legal issues you have or legal things that come through across your doorstep. Last but not least, and this is what I alluded to in the very beginning. Again, in our experience, it's not as easy as finding a distributor who's going to take care of your business and grow it for you nicely in the US while you just focus on manufacture. We haven't had that experience. Our belief is that you're absolutely going to drive it yourselves. As mentioned, we've set up a US entity. We've got third-party sales force. We've got third-party warehousing. And we actively drive sales. We actively make sure that we are on calls with the buyers. I'm jumping on a plane in 2 weeks' time. I'm face-to-face with HEB and Costco. And that's really what makes the difference, is you need to make sure that you can actually drive your business yourself to success and embed that passion that you have for your brand yourself. So those are the 10 points I just wanted to share based on our experience. It's kind of the top 10 I'd like to call them. And I'm hoping that some of those will resonate with some people out there, and hopefully you guys can take some of these on board and learn from the lessons that we've learned along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, just no one's dropped any questions yet. So please, people, if you have questions on audience, drop them on the chat and then I'll ask them of Greg. Greg, I mean, when we chatted the other day, yeah, you were talking about the California market being a tough one, and cutting your teeth on that, and now totally avoiding it. Other than that market, I mean, where are you seeing? Is that similar in other regions of the US? And how are you going after certain communities? It doesn't necessarily have to be communities, certain sectors that are looking at natural and organic product, etc. But where are you finding opportunities? Tell us a bit about.
Yeah, so I think Greg's a very good question. And California is a phenomenal market to launch natural products into, because there's a big uptake for those products in the region. Certainly what we find is that California has a lot of legislation that is certainly very different to the rest of the country, and is also subject to change. And because of that, we're not always sure what's allowed, what's not allowed. Certain ingredients sometimes are allowed in other entities and not in California. So as a general rule, we stay out of California. The other thing is that it's quite a because it's a market everyone gravitates towards. There's a lot of people focusing on California. The US is a very, very big entity. we've kind of focusing down the middle of the country, but more on the East Coast. Maybe you find that's better for us from a time zone point of view. But you can't focus everywhere, so you've got to kind of call it. And we've called California, if we can, we'll avoid it for now because of the extra complexities we need to be aware of in order for that to happen. And on top of that, then, the East Coast, if you look at where the wealth of the country is, the Northeast, New York, above New York, that whole sector is quite a wealthy area. We're an everyday premium product, so that works well and resonates well for us. All down the East Coast, because again, we're soda, we've got kids products, and then we also tip into the bottom in terms of Texas. Funny enough, we tip into Arizona a little bit, but those areas where it's hot and there's a need for people to want to be refreshed. I think the biggest thing to note is that in the conventional channel, there's a recognition that the natural channel is growing. So what we find is these convenience giants, Walmarts, Aldi's, etc., are all gravitating into the natural channel, whereas before it was the Sprouts and the Whole Foods, etc. So it's starting to merge. So you don't only have to focus on the natural channel. I hope that's kind of answers some of the questions, Rex. You're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Should know this by now. So I've got a question here from Don Larson. He's asked, how is private label business affecting your product line?
Not at all. So we are a total disruptor in the categories that we play in, and that's how we've targeted going into the States. But I'd be remiss to say if every retailer doesn't ask us, would we consider a private label version of our product? And ideally we'd want to have our own version if we'd want to do a private label, but at the end of the day, we're out to build our brand. So if you were to consider private label, my 2 cents would be there's only 1 or 2 retailers that would be a consideration, and those would be the retailers that focus primarily on private label. Aldi is one of them. Trader Joe's is another one, where the bulk of their products in their markets are private label.
I think to note on that, private label of your product into the US market is difficult to do from South Africa, I guess. It would be good to do if you had a canner in the US, but the freight costs and stuff like that are going to be quite significant. Would that be an issue?
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, I think with the way the exchange rate has moved and the input costs increasing in the States, in some instances it's actually worthwhile. So in most cases, the private label business is an extremely high volume, low margin business. So you just have to take it on a case by case basis. But there's been certain cases where we've had to look at ourselves quite with a difficult glare in the eyes, saying, should we venture into private label because the numbers seem to work. But then again, you've got to go back to what is your core focus? Are you building your own brand, or are you just looking at doing volume? And again, one of the challenges with private label, it's here today, gone tomorrow. So I suppose you've got to be careful to set up a whole business around a private label.
Yeah, I think Tsepo has asked a similar question to me, as I mentioned, but any plans to establish manufacturing in the US, or as you said, it's still a bit, yeah.
No, so 100%. I mean, we've already quite far down the line. We're closing out conversations in Mexico for some of the products that we do. We're also closing out some production facilities in the US. The challenge we have is that in the US, the minimum order quantities are absolutely huge relative to what we can get away with here. So, what we do is when we go into Walmart, etc., one of the biggest things that these types of retailers are concerned with is, are you able to fulfill the demands that comes through? So we've had to basically present our current route to market, which is out of Southern Africa, as well as our backup and our future plans, which is production out of the US. And effectively, as we start to hit those numbers, as our growth grows, we will then convert to a USA production. But that can only happen once we hit those minimum order quantities. We don't want to be sitting with excess stock, lazy stock sitting in the US, which is obviously just going to affect our cash flows at the end of the day, which is king, for any company that's growing.
Awesome, great. Okay, no one else got any questions here from the audience, but that's great insight. So thank you very much for your time today, Greg, and keep up the good work. Keep exporting to the US. I'm sure we'll see you at some shows. I know Greg was out at Summer Fancy Food with me in June, which was great. I see you guys got some nice orders from that as well, which was very encouraging to see. But as he said, you've got to get into the market. Greg, you were mentioning you've got to get in front of people. Another great opportunity as well is getting people to come out to your facilities in South Africa. So keep that in mind. I just had a company in Zambia that did that with a South African buyer, and they sold a lovely container of paprika into South Africa off the back of bringing them to the market. So a good thing to consider as well. But yeah, lots of those kind of delegations going to be happening between Wesgro and Department of Trade and Industry, stuff that we're doing with the USAID, etc. over the next year. So encouraged to get you involved in those. So thank you very much for your time today. Next up is Rabbi Levi. Just going to share my screen. You can have a look there. Great. So Rabbi Levi is joining us from Fort Lauderdale today. Just to give some insight, Rabbi Levi Fiegelstock is the Executive Director and Kashrut Administrator of Orb Kosher. He oversees the certification and monthly inspection of over 150 food service accounts in Florida, as well as 250 field representatives and 4 rabbinic coordinators. Rabbi Fiegelstock also oversees the growing manufacturing certification department of Orb Kosher. Prior to his time at Orb, Rabbi Fiegelstock served as the regional director of OK Kosher certification. Rabbi Fiegelstock was born in Vancouver, Canada. My wife is also from Canada, so got some connection there, where he served as a field administrator at the Kosher Check for 10 years. During his time in Vancouver, Rabbi Fiegelstock served as rabbi and president of Bayat Congregation. Rabbi Fiegelstock currently lives in Fort Lauderdale, as mentioned, in Florida, where he's joining us from today with a wife and 5 kids. And I was just in Vancouver a few weeks ago, and it was great to be out on the west coast of Canada. But I'm sure you love the warm weather in Florida. So I was there a few years ago. It's a great place with friends actually living in Fort Lauderdale. So welcome. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share and then take it away. And just, while Rabbi Levi's joining and sharing, please don't forget to put some questions. You can drop those questions throughout his presentation, and then I'll ask them at the end, and Rabbi Levi will answer those for you.
Okay. So thank you, Rex. Introduction. I do not have my 5 kids with me now, just as a prerequisite. So you guys don't have to worry about that. I actually spent some time in South Africa. I lived in South Africa for a year. Could everyone hear me well? Did you hear me well, Rex?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Carry on.
I spent some time in South Africa, a lovely, lovely country, one of my favorite. I always promise to go back. And I give you a lot of kudos for taking the flight from Vancouver to South Africa. I think time-wise, it's one of the longest flights you could take. So good for you. Anyway, so I've been working for about 20 years now in kosher certification. Florida actually is a growing market population-wise, kosher-wise. I think Florida is currently the fastest growing state in North America. they actually just added new electorates here in Florida because the state's getting so much bigger. It's even affecting the political electric we have here in Florida. So Florida's a crazy booming market. I'll get into that a little bit later. Kosher certification is, we'll go through that as well. I'm introduce myself a little bit, and we'll go through the slides. So my name, as Rex said, my name is Rabbi Fagelstock. I currently serve as the executive director of Orb Kosher, which stands for Orthodox Rabbinical Board, specifically at Broward and Palm Beach counties, but we do service outside of Florida as well. So I'm going to go through first a little bit of explanation about what is kosher for those that don't have any history in kosher, and then they'll go through the different categories of certification, and then we'll go into the nitty gritty of kosher, of what's the requirements and what are the largest issues that you may come about. So just a little bit about kosher certification. So what our objective here today is, we want to help provide assistance, marketing, and to advise food manufacturing facilities looking to export their products. Kosher is another marketing tool which is used to get into other markets, which we'll explain a little later, as well as we want to enable food companies to maximize their penetration of their brands and growth in the kosher markets. We want to be able to help you expand, especially here in Florida. There's a lot, the kosher market is growing day by day. I believe Florida is one of the largest Jewish communities outside of New York. I think we're in competition with California. To provide also a platform of awareness and promoting education of industry-based, on industry-related kosher principles. So we also want to explain to you a little bit what are the principles of kosher, and in order to maximize your penetration into the a kosher market, what are the necessary requirements? So a little bit about ORB Kosher. We are a nonprofit certification agency, and we are headquartered in sunny South Florida. Also, we are the largest food service kosher certification agency in the U.S. So we certify over 150 supermarkets, restaurants, catering. We are and also quite a large amount of companies. We are internationally, we certify in the world, and we currently certify 3,000 kosher products. And as I said, over 160 food service locations. Here is just a few companies we certify. We actually certify all of the sports stadiums here in South Florida. We have kosher product being, kosher retail space in all the stadiums here in South Florida. We do have 2 Winn-Dixie locations, which is a large supermarket chain here in Southeast Florida, and Garland Foods and Total Spice. These are all companies we certify. So a little bit about what is kosher, just to understand the basis. So the word kosher is specifically means it's fit. Kosher, the little translation means fit. It also means fit for, we also go fit, we use kosher as a fit for consumption. I know some people will use it when it comes to money or a certain behavior. They'll say, hey, that's not kosher behavior, or we want to do kosher business with you. But the base and the translation of the word kosher means fit. There's the original source for kosher, which is a biblical source, which is we do not, and in the Bible it specifically says, do not cook a calf in its mother's milk. And also there's different types of animals that we will not consume, whether it's pork we don't consume, whether it's shellfish we would not consume, and these are all specifically stated in the Bible. Expanded from that, the Talmud, as it usually does in Jewish law, it expands on what it says in the Bible. And in the Bible, yes, we don't eat pork. It says we can't eat pork. It says what animals we could or cannot eat. But it goes into the details of having at the same time, even though we don't eat pork or we don't mix milk and meat, there's a lot more details. We won't, every Jewish house will have 2 sets of pots because we don't cook milk and meat together either, or we do not use the same, equipment that has been used to cook pork or something that's not kosher. So that's all a Talmudic based explanation of the Bible. And that is more or less where the kosher agencies comes in, is to help implement the Talmudic interpretation of the Bible into the actual factory or into the actual specific location that would like kosher certification. So what is kosher certification? Kosher certification verifies that ingredients, production process, including all machinery and or food service process, complies with the standards of kosher. So if you're, let's say, making coffee that was flavored, do any of the other flavors have any ingredients that are not kosher? And we would go into the details of your machinery, what else is made on that line, or what else other ingredients is being used on that line in order to make sure it complies with the kosher law. A big mistake is that kosher means that the rabbi comes to bless the food. When I used to go visit specific food service manufacturing locations, they would say, "Rabbi, you coming to bless the food?" I said, "No, for blessing the food, I charge extra." So we're not blessing food. We are just making sure that it's fit for consumption for the different populations that consume kosher, in order for us to claim that it's kosher and it meets the biblical law of whether it's not mixing milk and meat together, or not mixing or not using the same equipment that was used, let's say, to make pork. And just to give you an example of a large issue that is indeed found very often when it comes to kosher, is there's a product used in a lot of manufacturers called glycerin. Now, glycerin is what makes a lot of foods chewy or sweet. Now, glycerin itself is comes a lot of times from palm oil, or will come from organic source of oil. Now, however, that is fine and good for a kosher purpose. But however, a lot of these same facilities that manufacture kosher glycerin will make glycerin from a non-kosher animal, or from a kosher animal, however, it was not slaughtered. So that same equipment cannot be used for kosher and non-kosher. So we would have to make sure that the glycerin that's going into whatever product is kosher. So that's a little bit about what is being done. Now, a little bit about the benefits of kosher certification. Kosher products have known to be sold 20 times better than a competing non-kosher brand. Also, a kosher product, the annual growth rate of 15% of non-kosher products. 3 to 5 shoppers buy kosher products for higher quality and increased food safety. Also, there's the religious dietary markets, and vegetarian and health markets as well are very popular when it comes to kosher. The next speaker is Ricardo, and actually before we started this webinar, Ricardo says, "Hey, I also always look for kosher when I go out," even though Ricardo is not specifically, maybe he's not specifically Jewish, but in general, in America, people are looking for a kosher product. Why? So there's 2 reasons. Number one is the Muslim market, which is a large market, a lot of times will use a kosher certification to make sure that their dietary laws are being kept as well. So a lot of people, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of people that keep halal will also eat meat that is kosher slaughtered as well. And as well as people, so also a lot of inspection agencies, especially here in America, actually make visits, and they're pre-scheduled visits. Kosher is an unscheduled visit. So there's a certain comfort level that the customer has knowing that their product that they're consuming is being inspected by a third-party agency that is not being scheduled beforehand, and it's all a surprise visit. As well as the religious dietary market, the huge benefit of kosher, and I'm going to go specifically to item number 4 of the religious dietary market, is a big benefit about kosher is that you're buying the consumer. Because once a kosher consumer gets attached to a product, he'll keep on going back and back and back because he knows that product is kosher. So to give you an example, a certain, let's say, sourdough bread, and the customer has a choice of only one piece of bread or one type of specific bread because that's the kosher one. He'll keep on going back to that kosher one because he doesn't have a choice because he keeps kosher. So from a religious dietary market, the customer continuously will go back and buy that same product, and they'll continuously buy the same thing. So if someone was interested in kosher, the application process would be they would go on the website, and I'm going to go through now a little bit of what's needed to be provided for kosher certification. So the first thing would be to complete the application form on our website, which is orbkosher.com, and you'll see a link to get certified. Now, what would the compliance need to be before you would be certified kosher? So first, it would be an initial assessment of your facility. So we would review the production process to see does it meet the ability for kosher. And we would also first discuss with you over the phone of the details of your facility, if kosher certification is even relevant. Then someone from our head office would come visit prior to certification and would review with you any changes that are needed or necessary before kosher certification. We would also review the company's inventory and raw materials used in production to make sure all the ingredients are in compliance with the kosher requirements. And we would also review the kosher status of your facility, and that would be on an ongoing basis as well. We also would do it sometimes if someone is not able to have the whole facility kosher. We could do either a special production, which is usually a little more capital heavy and more expensive because the rabbi has to be on site. And sometimes we would have to change the production from dairy to parve or non-kosher to kosher. Now, there's 3 different types of kosher certification. There is the regular, which would be what we call parve. So parve means there's no dairy and there's no animal byproducts. It's 100% parve. Now, you do have egg and fish is still considered parve for kosher purposes. Then you would have a kosher dairy, which would mean there's no meat, because as Jews we do not mix milk and meat whatsoever, and there's no meat byproducts or anything that would have had. So there would be no lard, there would be no and there would be nothing that would be had any contact with meat. The same thing is you would have kosher, something certified as kosher meat, which means it does not contain no dairy. So let's say if there was a steak or any other type of meat product, let's say an instant soup or something like that, that would have meat flavoring, there would be no butter in there. There would be nothing or no milk, no other dairy. When something is certified as kosher meat, there is no dairy whatsoever allowed to be in the product or on the same line as the product without kosherizing first. And the same applies for dairy, that if someone wanted to process kosher dairy and they did meat beforehand, then they would have to kosherize that the lines, which is a certain sanitation process that we go through. So just a few key compliance for kosher. Parev means all ingredients must be kosher parev, which means dairy-free, meat-free. There could be no animal fat. There could be no dairy. Equipment also must not handle dairy, meat, or not kosher materials. It has to be specifically dedicated for what we call parev, which is neutral. Dairy, on the other hand, all ingredients must be either parev or dairy, but they cannot have any meat whatsoever. Any meat would then turn it into non-kosher. The same thing is, equipment cannot handle any meat or non-kosher material. Meat, on the other hand, can only be produced the whole time with a rabbinical supervisor on site. There always has to be a rabbi on site when we're producing meat. All ingredients must be parev, which means neutral, or meat would have to be dairy-free. Equipment may not handle, the same equipment cannot handle any dairy or non-kosher materials. And then specifically grape wine, grape or wine, which is a lot more complicated process, always has to be done under full-time rabbinical supervision. Now that was the three different types of kosher, as we explained: the meat, milk, and parev, which is neutral. Now a little bit into the actual ingredients used in the facility. All raw materials, all processed ingredients must have a valid certificate from a recognized certification body. So if you're using oil, glycerin, or anything like that, that's processed, always needs a certification. So flavors and anything like that would always need proper kosher certification. However, natural, unprocessed, or minimally processed ingredients, like an apple or paprika, those types of things can be kosher approved without a kosher certificate, with the exception of dairy, animal, or grape-based products. As we explained before, grape wouldn't have to have a rabbinical supervision, so therefore, it would need a kosher symbol in order to be used in the production. And examples of some of these natural unprocessed would be grains, fruits and vegetables, simple spices, salt, sugar, and other simple chemical products. So just a quick also to understand in your actual manufacturing facility, the different requirements of each and every department. There's the receiving department, which they would be in charge to make sure that all ingredients that are being received are indeed kosher. Then the purchasing department, their responsibility would be to ask the company that they're purchasing from for the proper kosher certification for the products that they are purchasing. The production department has to make sure that only kosher products are being used on the kosher certified line. And if it's a dairy line, that no meat is being used on the line. And if it's a meat line, it's no dairy. And if it's dairy, there's no meat, and so on and so forth, to make sure that the kosher lines are kept properly kosher. Quality assurance always keeps the records for the kosher. They'll always make sure that the ingredients are kosher, and that also They keep the records of they'll also keep the records of batch sheets and formulas, which would be reviewed by the rabbi to make sure that only kosher ingredients are being used in production. Shipping department as well is a very important department because they're the ones a lot of times controlling the labeling. We want to make sure that the kosher products that are being labeled as kosher are being labeled properly, that a dairy product is being labeled as dairy, meat product is being labeled as meat, or a neutral, which we call parev, product is being labeled as such. Research and development is also very important that they're involved in kosher, because you would hate to have spent months and months and months researching and developing a certain product only to figure out that there is no kosher substitute for any ingredient that you have been doing R&D on. So you want to make sure that the research and development aspect of the business has knowledge and understanding about kosher. And marketing, which is a huge part of putting the symbol on, want to make sure that the kosher is being done properly and it's being marketed properly to the correct markets, that's on the right place on the label, that the correct kosher symbol is being put on. And the same thing is if you wanted to expand to other markets, you would want to be assisted to know what's the best kosher symbol to go with, or what's the best kosher market to try to reach. So some of the biggest problems we do have when it comes to certifying something kosher or a product place that has become kosher, and then unfortunately there are issues. These are some of the major issues that you would find when it would come to a place that's certified kosher, that the issues that come up. You'll have sometimes an unapproved ingredient. The kosher certification agencies require that we approve all ingredients being used in the production in order to ensure to the customer that the product is being kosher. One of the biggest issues is that we are not informed about an ingredient. And unfortunately, when we're not informed about an ingredient, sometimes it's okay and it's perfectly kosher and it's fine and we just get it approved. Sometimes, unfortunately, it will make the product non-kosher. So we want to make sure that all ingredients are approved. Also, a new product that's made and a kosher symbol has been put on that product. However, that product was not approved by the agency for that it's fit to be used for kosher. So, for an example, if there was a product that was neutral, that was parev, that did not contain, there's a product that was dairy, and the symbol for parev was put on it, that would be a problem because we have to let the customer know that the product is actually dairy. We want to make sure that the products that are produced by your particular manufacturer, that they are properly approved by us, so we know that the kosher symbol is proper as well. Also, a third party. So a third party, I know was discussed before with Pura a little bit about private labeling. So if someone was doing private labeling for a third party, and we also need a kosher for legal purposes. I know we were talking about beforehand legalities. For legal purposes, we need to have the kosher symbol approved as well for the third party product. Because from a legal perspective, the kosher symbol, it's a legal registered trademark universally. So we need to make sure that the third party has been approved to use our kosher symbol. Also, any new equipment, sometimes it's used and it was used in a non-kosher factory or non-kosher facility. So all new equipment we have to be notified before it's installing in the facility. Another issue we have is the change of ownership of a kosher of the ownership of the facility is sold to somebody else. Our contract is with one person, then it's sold. Also, the use of a subcontractor, so you're using someone else to make your product for you, and unfortunately, the other company is not kosher, and they're subcontracted out in who knows where. That place is not kosher, and then we have an issue with the kosher symbol being used in a non-kosher facility. Shipping a kosher certified product without the symbol on the packaging. So we want a lot of times a customer that's ordering your product wants the kosher certificate on it. If the kosher symbol is not on it, they may reject it and actually send it back. So it's not something you want to happen. So you want to make sure that if it requires kosher symbol on the packaging, the kosher symbol needs to be on the packaging. Also, receiving a non-kosher ingredient without approval. Some companies, let's say a spice mixing company, they were just mixing spices. We would allow them to mix a non-kosher spice as well. However, we want to know about it because we want to make sure that the process being used to mix doesn't make an issue for our kosher products. We want to know if any non-kosher ingredients are there, how they're being used in the facility. And the last issue we usually have is using a dairy ingredient without permission in the power facility. So if you're let's say a non-dairy chocolate factory, and someone started using milk powder in one of their chocolates, it would now make a lot of your chocolate dairy, and therefore it would affect the whole facility. So it's very important when you're adding a new ingredient, especially dairy, that it's a facility that's part of that you notify the kosher agency first. Now here's a little bit about the kosher ingredient management, all done digitally, and we could go through that at a different time of exactly how it's added, but it's a digital website where you'd go on and you would add your ingredients. Same thing as all your products. You would have a list of all your kosher all the products you're manufacturing as kosher. And the same thing is not only you would have a list of your ingredients, as I showed you before, you also would submit new ingredients, and there's different parameters that we use to approve the ingredient and as well of how to submit it. So the same thing is, so now when you add a new product, a new product has to bear a kosher symbol, and you can't reuse packaging. So if you use a bottle that was used before, it cannot be used again for kosher processing. So, and if you're making a test product, the test product could only be done in the R&D area. And if you would want to do it in the production area, you would need to get approval from your kosher agency. Product approval, a kosher certificate is issued after the product is approved, and the products will be listed on our website as well as other websites that list kosher products. Additional fees, as I said before, if someone was making a private label, it would have to go through a process where we need to have a relationship with the third party and to take care of the legalities when you were wanting to process for a third party. Once you finish setting up kosher, you would get a kosher certificate. This is what a kosher certificate looks like, and you'll be able to provide that to your customers when they were ordering a particular product, for their either from B2B or from business to business, or in a situation where it was going to retail. Usually you would have the symbol on the package. But when it comes to a business to business, you usually always want to see your kosher certificate. Every year, we also renew the kosher certification. We make sure that your ingredient list and product lists are accurate and up to date. We would also request kosher certificates for all the suppliers that you're using the ingredients from them. And if there are any changes in the facility, you would let ORB know when it comes to renew your certification that there are X amount of changes in your facility that want to make sure that they are not an issue for kosher compliance. Use of the kosher symbol, private labels, as we discussed before, an agreement needs to be done with the kosher certification agency to make sure the trademark could be used elsewhere at a third-party manufacturer. The kosher symbol should be placed somewhere visible in the packaging. You don't want to have it blending into your packaging that no one could see it, and then there's no purpose in getting kosher certification if people can't see it. So you want to make sure that it's in a place that's visible and that people can easily find it. And also for products being shipped to Israel, there are different requirements in Hebrew, and that's something that could be discussed if it was something that was needed. Some frequently asked questions. I applied for a new ingredient with a kosher certificate. I received it. I received from the supplier, and the rabbi denied it. Why do we deny kosher certificates? A, there could be a dairy ingredient, and your facility is certified as pareve, as neutral. Or unfortunately, there are a lot of kosher agencies out there, and they're not all blanketly accepted. Some of them are not up to Orthodox standards, so that could also be an issue. I'm adding a new line of products. What would it cost to add these to my certification? In general, kosher certification goes on your whole facility and any product you produce. We do not charge per product. However, if a line was added and it added other complications that would affect the visitation amount of how often your facility needs to be visited, then that may change the cost of certification. However, to add as many products that it's not per product, it's rather how the cost basis of kosher is usually measured by how often you would need to be visited. I mistakenly shipped some products to a customer. I forgot to put kosher symbol. What should I do? You would contact your kosher agency, and that we would provide something called a lot-specific letter of certification, where we would inform the customer this specific lot number that has that's missing the kosher symbol is kosher. I received a phone call regarding kosher from a client, but I don't understand the request. What should I do? So whenever you get a question about kosher, if you don't know what to do, more than happy to call us up, send them to your kosher agency, and we're more than happy to help them understand what's needed to be done. I have to send a product in a tanker. Where do I put the kosher symbol? So if you're selling something in a tanker size, then the kosher symbol is actually on the letter of certification, and the tanker also would be kosher, and you would provide the transport company. You would provide them the letter of certification, and when they deliver it to the customer, they would give them the letter of certification together with the certificate of analysis. Okay, now the quick way to certification process: you would submit an application to the kosher agency, to the ORB. We would process your application, and we would have the license agreement signed by the company. We would make an on-site audit, and depending if everything was up to par, we would grant certification. If you have any other further questions, please feel free to contact me at fl@orbkosher.com or visit our website, orbkosher.com, and I'm open to any other questions.
Great, thanks, Rabbi Levi. Let me just have a look here. See some questions on the chat. Great. So, yeah, firstly from Tepo, I've got some of my own as well, but he says, Shalom, Rabbi. In SA, we found that our lack of kosher and halal certification hasn't impacted consumption with the majority of Jewish and Muslim customers and outlets. For a non-alcoholic certified organic plant-based infused beverage, where we've seen the perception to be that the product is intrinsically clean, is there a material benefit to kosher certification in the US?
So yes. So you want to further the question, or?
Yeah, I did, just confirming that they are in the process of certification in South Africa anyway.
Okay. So yeah, so the certification, the kosher certification in outside of the US is not as popular as it is in the US. My wife happens to be from France. We visit there very often. There is no kosher certification on any of the packaging. So, a lot of times, even just for, let's say, eggs, we actually go to a kosher market to get eggs. You can't buy them in the non-kosher market. Eggs don't need a certification, but all the eggs in France happen to be brown, which have a lot of blood spots. And Jews, we don't eat blood either, so we don't eat the ones with the blood spots on the egg. Kosher certification in the US is a lot more popular, and it is a sales point. So outside of the US, it's not as big. Inside the US and inside of Israel, it's almost necessary if you want to enter the kosher market.
Great. And Heather Nelson's asked, does kosher apply to skincare and cosmetics?
Not if you're not eating it. To lipsticks and lip balms, it would apply, yeah.
Okay, so it has to be ingested. Okay. What do you suggest companies start getting in place before they approach you? What are the key things that you want to look at and they can get thinking about?
If you're a natural organic type of product, whether it's honey or wheat or flour, there's not much that needs to be done. If you were a meat company, I would also, especially in South Africa, I wouldn't go down that road, or a company using one grape product. It's very costly. Most beneficial and the easiest are the organic type of products. And if it's a processed product, you just want to make sure once you know that all your ingredients are kosher, you can go ahead and start kosher certification. It shouldn't be very complicated.
Okay, so a little bit of research on the products that you're using, sort of traceability, that where you're getting your ingredients from are kosher certified products, and or don't necessarily need kosher certification if there are certain ingredients.
Or you're going to want to find the comparable ingredient. So if, let's say, you were using a non-kosher flavor, you want to check, hey, are there any kosher flavoring companies that I could use instead? And if you do, you want to make sure that it doesn't affect your final product.
Okay. Have you got an idea of an estimate starting price for getting kosher certification?
In rand or dollars?
Give us in dollars, we'll calculate.
So kosher certification on a simple product starts as around 2,000 a year, and a more complicated product could be anywhere from 5,000 a year. And then when you're talking about meat or something like that, a meat product would be 10,000, 15,000 a year long.
Okay. And then you're saying per year, so that is an annual subscription, an annual
certification fee. And then there would, depending on the complexity of your product, a rabbi would visit your facility X amount of times a year. Usually the minimum is twice a year. The maximum is usually once a month.
Okay. So, for example, if a Zambian company wanted to get certified, you guys have partners in Zambia that would go out, a rabbi from Zambia that would go out to those facilities? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, and then just on curious, US stores in general, I mean, what is their demand on kosher that you're seeing at the moment?
From so a company like Walmart, a company like Costco, they all want to see kosher. I've been dealing with a company called Kroger, which is a huge company here, and they're actually starting on their website specific kosher section on their website just for kosher. So there's a tremendous, not only the high demand, when you walk into a store here in the US, 50-60% of the products there have some sort of kosher symbol.
Oh, that many, okay. And just out of interest as well, if you certify a company, does that cover them worldwide, kosher certification, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
They can ship anywhere and any products they want.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. That's some great insight into that market. Next up, we have Ricardo Berries. I'm just going to share my slide there. Right. So, as mentioned a little bit earlier, Ricardo was actually out in South Africa earlier this year. He came to our event, Engage Trade Africa. So it was great meeting in person. We took him all over Cape Town and around the mountain. But great insight into the African American market as well. He's always, and I met him again at Summer Fancy Food as well, and just driving that, the real need for connection with the African market at the moment between African Americans and or the African diaspora in America and Africa as well. So great insight into that, and he's going to give us an outline of what he does in the market. I'll leave it with you from there. I'll just do the proper introduction for you, other than my strange introduction now. But Ricardo Berries is a serial entrepreneur, investor, speaker, and coach. In 2020, he founded Purposely, which is a global online marketplace for selling products that support causes. Purposely makes it easier to connect manufacturers who are making an impact in their communities and buyers who share those same values. He is the founder and chairman and CEO of the MI Group of companies. He is also chairman of the Atlanta Black Chambers Global Opportunities Committee and a scholar of the Goldman Sachs 10 KSB. A SCORE mentor, a digital marketing coach, and BizHack Academy, with BizHack Academy, member of Sir Richard Branson's Entrepreneurship Center of the Caribbean, Miramar Pembroke Pines Chamber of Commerce, Woodstock Business Club, and ICABA World Network. He is also an author and podcast producer and musician. Thank you. I'll pass over to you now. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say, Ricardo. Please feel free to share.
Thank you, Rex. Good afternoon, everyone. It's still morning in Atlanta, and I was hearing our good friend from Fort Lauderdale sharing as well. Let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear me well, I'm going to just be sharing my screen.
We can hear you very well. Very well. Thank you.
Awesome. And let me know if you can see my screen now. It's sharing. Sure. All right, there we go. So like Rex said, I'm Ricardo. I'm gonna skip the introduction and talk more about Purposely and essentially what we do for Purposely. We're really alleviating the injustice in the commerce space by empowering small creators from around the globe to prosper and positively impact their communities and the world. So essentially, we work with creators that are making positive impact in their environment, in their society, and their community. We do believe that at some point we all have to live our lives on purpose. And that means our customers as well, what we eat, what we wear, where we go, if we're going to save our world. And that's very, very important. So we are creating a unified ecosystem that will demonstrate to consumers your why, your story, your reasons for existing, and that's really where you come in as a purpose-driven creator, to really help to empower consumption around sustainability, around impact, a positive impact that you're making on the environment. And we also work a lot with nonprofits as well. So we're building a cause wall that nonprofits that are advocating for the same kind of impact that you're making. The only difference with a nonprofit and a creator is that the creator sells the product, the nonprofit advocates to eliminate or eradicate, if you may, some of the causes that they're working towards. So there's a synergy there. Oftentimes the creators don't know the nonprofits and vice versa. So we're trying to connect that. And of course, our conscious consumers. You know, every consumer for the most part now is asking about the sustainability of the products that they're consuming. They're asking about the impact it's making on the environment. Is there a give back component? Is it doing something good for the community? And that's really what they want to get involved in. But I do want to talk about just the African American population here and some of the things that you should think about as you work on getting into the U.S. market. The important thing is, when I think about the market, there is about 47 million of us out in the U.S., which is for the most part 10% of us are foreign born, and so that's very, very important. And where are we located inside the United States? I mean, we are in the South. A lot of us are in the South. So I'm in Atlanta, and Atlanta is what we consider as the Black Mecca for excellence in the United States. We have some major large cities that are majority African American populated, if you may. And then we're also up in the Northeast. So your New York, your New Jersey, your Philly, it's really a lot of that in this area. So it's very, very important to note as you think about entering into the market. It's important to know where are your customers. Now, the African American may not be your customers, and that's also okay. But if you do have in your customer persona or your buyer persona, which is something that we encourage as marketers, you got to know who is buying, who is the ideal person to buy what you sell, and where are they, because that's where you really want your message to go. And so that's very, very important. A quick backstory, a few days ago, one of our other company, we were talking to a client who has gotten approval for Walmart to be in all their Walmart locations. But the way they interpreted it was not the way Walmart wanted them to interpret, because the product they sell would not do well in all the locations of Walmart. So they had to get that clarification, because the product will only do well where Walmart feel that the customer and the traffic is actually going to make sense for that specific product. So it's very, very important to know where your customers are. The other thing is 1.8 trillion is a number I want you to remember, because little by next year, the purchasing power of African Americans is projected to reach this number, 1.8 trillion. So there's a lot of purchasing ability going around. It is always going to be about, is this product right for me? Does this product do what I want? I mean, do I need this product? Will I go to the store, or will I go online and actually look for this product? And in our world, we always say people who know you will look for you, which means you've got to get known. And people who don't know you will look for what you do or what you're selling. And so it's very important that you are clear in terms of what you are selling if you are new, because nobody knows you. So getting into a market, you really need to work a lot on that brand awareness and that brand exposure. And it's not easy. So I don't want to sell you the wrong way. It is hard. It takes a lot of work, and you're going to also have to have some skin in the game, because create awareness to create this sort of visibility, you're going to need to do some things to get in front of the consumers. The the consumers are also, you know, they're very altruistic in nature in terms of the way that they're actually shopping. And it's a big part of why we as Purposely are heading down into this direction. And it's going to be a lot of work. Like I said, it's a long road ahead. But the top social issues that are driving even the African Americans to make purchases are really around some of the things like racial injustice and equality, just hunger and food security, voting rights, healthcare. These are what's driving African Americans to make decisions at the cash register, at the POS, online when they go visit. It's a lot about advocacy. And so they want to support, but they're not just going to make a purchase because you know, of just for whatever other reasons. They're purchasing because you're supporting something that they care about. So it's important to associate and ensure that you have some semblance of impact. And, you know, my biggest recommendation is to avoid greenwashing. And greenwashing is defined by people who are actually getting into the retail space, who want to get into the market, and they easily will tell you, oh yeah, well, we do support this, or we do this, we do that, and they actually don't, just because they want to get some sales, just because they want to get some support. Because at some point, people will find that out, and that becomes a very harmful thing for your brand. Fulfillment. Once you understand who you're targeting, once you understand how you're getting access to this consumer market, understand as well that fulfillment is going to be key. It is perhaps one of the lowest hanging fruit for new entries into the market. There are about 2,000 plus fulfillments in the country today. And what that actually means, so a fulfillment center is different from a warehouse. I just want to point that out. And whereas warehouse will store your stuff, and you have to go and get it and distribute it to your retailers, a fulfillment facility actually not just store the item, but they pack and ship it whenever someone makes a purchase. And these customers are making purchases from online or you know, marketplaces and so forth. And so this is the role of the fulfillment in the United States is very, very important. So as you are thinking about entering into the market or expanding your reach, connect with fulfillment centers, because they are growing pretty fast, which is an indication that the demand for fulfillment is growing. So there's about an average of 1 million square feet of fulfillment facilities out here. And so that's very, very important to getting your products into the hands of the consumers. The courier network is really good out in the United States. So USPS, which is a government facility, government courier, UPS, FedEx, these guys dominate the local market. Any of the continental USA, they can get products into these spaces within 2 days. And Amazon is also in the mix as well. Amazon has developed their entire network. So if that's something that is of interest, then, you know, Amazon can get your stuff into the hands of the consumer in rapid time, perhaps even less than 2 days in many cases. 75% of the African Americans really are thinking about the purpose of the brand. Why? What's the core behind what is you're doing? Because this is very, very important for them. We showed you earlier on the altruism of why they're actually shopping. So this is very important. So promoting that, letting people know the things that you're actually doing to benefit the society, to benefit the environment. We believe that sharing that is actually going to be helpful, because the conscious shoppers, whether they're in the supermarkets or the physical retail environment or online, they're always going to be looking for for these purpose, for these things, and they don't want to have to look too hard for it. They do want to just have it right there. And you know, for example, the gentleman that was on before me talks about kosher, and that's an important purpose, because people are trying to live healthy. People are trying to stay away from certain things, and so their main reason for going after these products is exactly that. So you want to ensure your certifications and anything that you're doing that is going to benefit the consumer is upfront in your efforts. So how do you be consistent when you're thinking about getting to the market? Research is going to be very, very important. You know, you can't be what you can't see, and you cannot live in the dark about your market. So you've got to know the market. You got to know how to access the market. You got to understand where your customers are. The United States is very big. It is very big, and if you've been here, you understand that. You know, I had someone just came to Atlanta, and they spent their entire trip in Atlanta because it was just there's just so much to do just in Georgia alone. And they were like months in Georgia and never got the chance to go to anywhere else. So you've got to understand that the US market requires a lot of research, a lot of intelligence data. And these are some of the spaces that you can begin that process. You can get to Nielsen, Kantar, Gartner. These folks can actually help you with some intelligence about your market. The more you know about your market, the less you can be, I guess I'll say fooled, or the less you can be told otherwise. Because the more you know, the more intelligent of a conversation that you can have with whether it's your distributor or your retailer, because once they realize you don't understand, then they could tell you anything. And I think someone was on the call about experiences that they've actually had. It's always going to be about how much you know about the market and how much you know about accessing these consumers. And information is everywhere today. The other thing that I see that is very, very helpful is building networks while you are actually here. For every time you visit the United States, for example, or for every time you've got visitors in your territory, you've got to build those relationships, because the relationships are what is going to help to take your product to the next level. Attend events where you can, go to these expos, go to these conferences. We're, for example, in the hat that I wear with the Atlanta Black Chamber, I chair a Global Opportunities Division. We're actually building a Global Opportunities Conference next year. And we're doing that because we realize the importance of relationships and network. So you do want to join these organizations. There are a ton of events that happens all the time. And if you go to Eventbrite, which is one of the largest platform in the country for events, and I'm sure you may or may not know about Eventbrite because they're a global company, but this actually helps you to see what's going on in every city, every town on the ground. You can see different events because organizers wants you to come to their event, and organizers wants you to come to their event. They will be promoting their event. So that's very, very crucial for you to be cognizant of where you go and where are some other things. And so an example, if you are looking to get into the New York market, you should be looking at what's going on in and around New York and how you may be able to get involved in some of these events, get involved in some of these organizations, and the relationships. You can have boots on the ground. It's very, very interesting. On my last trip to South Africa, I'll be going to South Africa in a few days to the AGOA Forum, for example, and previously on my trip when we did the event with Rex and Wes Grow, just after I left, I already now have a team in South Africa. There is a small team that we're building in South Africa, one person at a time, and that's really because of the power of networks and relationships. So you have to do the same as well. These are some other areas that you can think through, right? In terms of the online components of networking platforms, social media. Ask for introductions. Who do you know that that would be interested in a product like this, or in this kinds of product? Who can you refer me to? Don't be afraid to actually ask for introductions, because everybody always, I don't know anyone who doesn't want to help. I mean, I make the assumption that everybody is good. Everybody's good people, and everybody wants to help in ways that they can. And so because of that, it's okay to ask for introduction. Who do you know? Who can you refer us to? Hey, we have this product. Do you know anyone? Can you talk to anyone? And this is where it starts. And if you do that consistently, you will find yourself with a lot of connections, and potentially a lot of wins when it comes to your products. It's important that you are consistent though, because the value that you're actually creating is what the customer is actually buying. And I've always told my clients that you sell what people want to buy, but you've got to have a why, because you know why some products do better than others in the market. It's always going to be around the value that you create for the consumer. So you've got to create value. You've got to improve on your story. Storytelling is going to be crucial. People who know you will look for you, but people who don't know you will be intrigued by your story. What is that story? And how are you telling that story? You also have to be able to visualize the impact that you're making. And don't be afraid when you get into your social environments and so forth. Show people what you're actually doing. And be real with them, because at the end of the day, they really love that. And uphold high standards and quality, because you can't, you know, you would not believe how many products I see coming into the market and they are quote unquote crap. Like the quality is horrible. There's no information, and it's so hard. You just leave it right there. You really want to uphold a very high standard and quality in the market, because your products will actually get rejected, and that's going to be a main problem for you if you do not adhere to those sort of high quality standard. So shoot for the stars, and if you do not hit it, at least you hit the moon, but you do have really high standards, and people are attracted to greatness and quality, right? Success begets success. So when you start at a high level, the way your product look, the design, all of that speaks volume to the consumer. So we don't just want to just throw it at them because you can't do that. Go further, because there's so many products in the market. What are you doing to actually stand out? So that's going to be very, very important. The US market is big, but you can start small. We still want you to think big. I mean, it is for you to seize. I mean, there are 49, 50 states. It's for you to seize, but you've got to continue to think big and start small, and you've got to collaborate. You've got to be able to collaborate and be open to collaborating with folks. And so this is very, very important. I'm happy to take, I hope that was helpful, but I'm happy to take any questions, any feedback that you may have. If you are actually interested in what we do at Purposely, you can scan, you can visit us, you can reach out. There's my WhatsApp here, my email. You can reach out. Happy to put you in touch with our team to really help you. We have made some inroads with some products from Africa, Rex, and pleased to say we just got a shipment this week for a product from South Africa, who we met when we were on the trip with you guys. The product arrived, and these guys, I think they're Welcome Assist, they're called. And so we've gotten some products, and we're actually working on a number of other products that will be here shortly. So this is fantastic, and these folks are absolutely determined to be into the market. And for our market system, where we do a multi-channel system, so it's not just online, but we do offline as well. So this quarter is called the shopping season here, and so it's the Thanksgiving, it's Halloween is next week, and it's all of these things that people are just absolutely willing to go out and look and support. So we're going to be out there as well in the events, and we are going to be pushing our pop-up network, just kind of riding this exciting season. So there's always opportunity for everyone, and so happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And yeah, it's interesting stuff to come next year for sure. I mean, being out at Summer Fancy Food earlier in the year, there was just so much interest in African products at that event. And as with Rabbi Levy mentioning, there's a kosher shelves at shop. There are also shelves for African products at shops around the world, and specifically in the US. The guys from World Market are doing quite a lot in that space as well, who distribute products to various Walmarts and stuff as well. So I don't see any questions here, but I've got a few for you. Have you identified any or noticed any specific African products that are gaining traction in the US? Doesn't necessarily have to be food. It can be any products.
Yeah, I think there are a few, right, in different categories. So on the food side, you know, some of the things that we see, like folks go into the supermarkets for, and they will actually grab it because it stands out. It's got the Africa continent logo on it, and it's like, oh wow, this is a grabber. Chips, you know, just these little finger food, if you may, we call them snacky stuff. And people are always interested in trying. And boy, I tell you, if it is good, they will come back for it. That's going to be the catch, right? If it's not within their taste, it usually becomes something that they try to avoid. And the non-food category, we see a lot of apparel and cosmetic as well, just kind of really doing well. We see a lot of these introductions are happening at events. People actually coming out to events and showcasing the wares and showing you how to apply these makeups and really telling their story. And that's what we've discovered as the entry point in getting into some of these other retail and some of these spaces, because it's such a new product. And I'm always an advocate for new products, because the challenge that you have with the brand new product is that you don't get picked up the way that you imagine it's going to be. You're going to have to be in front of people. You're going to have people to talk it up, allow people to try it. You know, you're going to have to do that, because this is how it gets out. So we see cosmetics, we see fashion, you know, we see some edible items as well. I love some of the perfumes that I've met in South Africa, and everybody that I've met always love that. So I think that's also going to take on, and obviously the healthy products. So healthy foods, you know, anything that is concentrated towards better health, it is rapidly growing out here.
Okay, great. Are there any specific retail outlets in Atlanta that are just focused on African products at the moment?
So we do know there's a mall out here called the new Black Wall Street Mall. It's got it's a mall that is just Black businesses in every shop. And more than 50%, if I'm not mistaken, of those shops are African related products. And so that's a huge symbolic symbol out here in Atlanta. So if you are in Atlanta, find your way to the new Black Wall Street Mall, and you can also look at it. And so there are a number of stores that are there. There are other areas in Atlanta that concentrate specific on African products too. So like Gwinnett County, for example, which is a really large county, here they do have a number of it's very multicultural. So the Gwinnett Chamber, the Gwinnett government, there's a lot of directories around retails that are carrying African products. And Marietta, College Park, these are some places in Atlanta that are highly concentrated with African Americans, and then they're always looking for these products. Downtown Atlanta's got lots of different restaurants that you can pursue that sells African cuisine. Marietta is another great city. So I would think Marietta, Lawrenceville, you know, College Park, these are some of the places that I would be thinking if you want to be in Atlanta. Kennesaw, these are some cities, and you pull them up on Google, you'll definitely begin to see some of the stuff that's happening in these areas.
And then finally, how can people access the US market with Purposely? How do they get in with you to start with?
Well, we start with an application. We go through a process to ensure that you know, we can tell your story, we can showcase who you are and the impact you are making. So it is a a little bit more than just putting an item on the platform and putting the price in the description. So you go to our website, purposely.com, and you can apply as a creator, and this application will then we'll start that application process. And you'll, you know, some of our creators take a couple of days to fill it out because of the questions that we're asking. We're asking about certification, we're asking about the impact, and we do want you to visualize it. We do want to see, and we do want you to show us what's the impact you're actually making. So, for example, you know, one of the products that we actually had, they are helping the disabled community with wheelchairs. And this is something that we felt like, oh wow, this is really great. This is a good cause, because supporting folks who are seeking mobility is a great way to make our world better. So getting that sort of content to help to build and create your story may take some time, but that's the process that we go through. And when it's done, though, I think it becomes a great way to share who you are as a new brand and tell your story, and people start resonating and connecting. Because all people are looking for, Rex, is a connection to your brand. They're just looking for something that connects them emotionally to you, and that's it. And then you just have to make sure that you do the rest of it, which is, it's good. If you try it, it's going to be great. If you use it, it's going to work. Those things are there already, but they're also looking for something else, which is that emotional connection, and you will have a customer for life.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for your awesome insight there. And I will be at a Goa Forum next week, so I'm looking forward to seeing you again. 3 times in 1 year, Ricardo. It's
3 times in 1 year. That's great.
It's something more than sometimes I see most of the South African exporters in 2 years. It's interesting to be seeing you up in Johannesburg. Thank you everybody for joining us today. It was great to have you involved, but please, get in contact with Ricardo. If you're looking for information on anybody that spoke today and wanting to connect, please give us a shout at Catalyze. So please go on to wegetAgoasupport.com. You can find some contact details on there. Otherwise, you can fill in the form and we'll be in touch and helping you with AGOA information. But thank you everyone for joining today, and see you all soon.
Thank you.